Hi, welcome back. This is Calm 1160. We're in week number 8. If you're listening to this early, you're probably still on your midterm break, or you may be listening to this the actual week that we're back. Either way, I hope that you had a fantastic break and had an opportunity to celebrate the fact that you're at the halfway mark. So we only have a few more weeks to go, and then it'll be time for our mid-year holiday, and you'll be able to say that you've completed your first term. So congratulations on getting this far. Big achievement. This week, we're going to be looking at revising academic writing, and we're going to be talking about a variety of things. We're going to be reviewing the comma, the apostrophe, and talking about homophones. There will be an assignment due at the end of this week, so that's November 1st by midnight. The assignment, as usual, will be uploaded to Blackboard under Assignments, and you'll be able to access it as soon as you watch these videos. I wanted to first start off by talking about why we're even discussing revising writing to begin with. It is really important to review common errors and issues in writing to prepare for workplace writing. Whether we like it or not, proper grammar, punctuation, spelling, and word usage all affect your image as a professional. We know that there are lots of very, very intelligent people that have difficulty with writing. But unfortunately, the stereotype is that if people don't take time with their writing, that they're not taking time with other issues as well, and that they're being unprofessional. We want to make sure that for the rest of your days here at Niagara College and for your future as a healthcare professional, that your grammar, your punctuation, and your word usage are all on point so that people will recognize you as the professional that you are. We're going to be looking at the 3 most common issues in workplace writing, and we're going to start with everybody's favorite, the comma. Commas are quite difficult to use, and a lot of people, myself included, find it one of the more difficult forms of punctuation in the English language. We're oftentimes taught that any time that somebody pauses, you insert a comma. This is true, but it's also not true. A lot of the time when we're speaking, we pause in particular places to add emphasis or, right, to vary our voice tone. We don't necessarily put in commas in these places when we're writing. So our actual speech pattern can sometimes be a little bit of a false friend because it doesn't actually translate into the way that we write. So we're going to go over some rules for the comma and look at some examples. Again, if you have no issues with the commas, this might be review for you. But for some people, this might be new. I'm hoping I'll be able to show you a couple of tricks that you'll be able to use that will help you. The first rule that we're going to look at is the basic rule. And this is the rule I think we're taught maybe around grade 1 or something, that you use commas to separate out 3 or more words, phrases, or clauses written in a series. In other words, this is the list rule. So, oops, sorry, I just messed up my screen there. So, for example, if I'm talking and I'm giving a list of things, if I'm going to talk about the fact that I went to the store and I bought a variety of things, I'm going to use commas to separate out those elements. So I might write something like, I went to the store, and bought apples, milk, coffee, and tea. And I'm using out a comma, right, to separate out all of the different elements. So anytime I'm using a list, I'm going to put commas in between the elements. This comma before and, A-N-D, is actually what's called the Oxford comma. And it's an optional one. So you can either have your comma before A-N-D or not have your comma before A-N-D. It's up to you. But the commas between the other elements are necessary to show, right, that you're listing out a variety of things. You're separating out the list. This is important because when you're listing out different things, you want to make sure that you're keeping those elements separate. And I just wanted to show you something funny, a meme that's come up that really illustrates why it is important to use the comma. So take a look at this one here, right? A comma can make all the difference. Absolutely. So for example, here's a list at a hospital of reasons why somebody might be admitted to the emergency room: a persistent cough, a fever, chest pressure, and then we have unable to eat diarrhea, okay, which should actually be unable to eat, comma, diarrhea, where we're using a list. If you're unable to eat diarrhea, you probably don't belong in the hospital. That's probably normal. So there's just sort of a funny example of what happens when people leave out the commas in a list, right? You end up with some really sort of funny type situations. The next rule that we're going to follow is that you need to use commas after introductory clauses, phrases, or words that come before the main clause. Now, don't worry about the expression clause. That's just a grammar sort of language for talking about a chunk, okay, a sentence chunk. Really, what you want to think about here is anything that's sort of introducing the main idea needs to have a comma after it. And I like to call this the condition rule. Okay, so anytime you have a condition to a particular sentence, you're going to put a comma after it. So if I were to say, even though it's midnight, I'm going to order a pizza, right? I have my main clause, my main sentence chunk, I'm going to order a pizza, but then I have a condition, right? Even though it's midnight. Or I might say something like, yes, I am getting a pizza. Yes, in this particular situation, is an introductory element. So I'm going to put a comma after that. So anytime I'm introducing something, I want to have a comma there as well. The next rule is a little more difficult. This rule states that you need to use commas to separate independent clauses when they're joined by any of these 7 coordinating conjunctions that are listed on the screen: and, but, for, or, nor, so, and yet. This one's a little more difficult. I like to call this the fanboys rule, because the word fanboys stands for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So if you remember the word fanboys, you're going to be able to use a comma every time you need to within a complex sentence. When they talk about clauses, really what they're talking about are sentence chunks. So I could say something like, I went to the store, I bought coffee. Okay. 2 little baby sentences. We don't normally speak or write in such small sentences. We tend to use complex sentences. So I might want to say instead, I went to the store and I bought coffee, so that I'm linking it all together. If I do that, I have an independent clause or a sentence chunk here on the one side, and another sentence chunk over here on the other side. So before I use my connector word, my conjunction, I need to put a comma in for a pause. Okay, and that works with any of the words: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So I could say something like, I went to the store, but they did not have coffee. Okay, again, I'm using but to connect 2 little ideas, and each of these could be their own little baby sentence. If I don't have a quality on each side, I don't use a comma. So I might say something like, I like pizza, but not spaghetti. I have a mini sentence here, I like pizza, but on the other side, I only have not spaghetti, which couldn't stand as its own little independent sentence. So in that case, no comma. Let's carry on. This is a final rule that we're going to cover. You use a comma in the middle of a sentence to set off clauses, phrases, and words that are not essential to the meaning of the sentence. You use 1 comma before to indicate the beginning of the pause, and 1 at the end to indicate the end of the pause. I like to call this one the gossip rule. So whenever you're interrupting a sentence, think about it like as if you're telling some gossip. You're going to put a comma around those elements that interrupt. Okay, so for example, I might say something like Sophie, who is a student, ordered a pizza at midnight. My main sentence is Sophie ordered a pizza at midnight, but I'm giving some extra information. Or again, even think of it like gossip. I might say Sophie, who is a student, ordered a pizza at midnight. I'm interrupting my main sentence. Okay, so in order to set off the descriptor, I'm going to put commas around this little part to set it off from my main sentence. If you keep these in mind, you're going to find that you're able to use the comma quite easily. The most difficult rule to follow is probably the fanboys rule. And again, that just takes a little bit of practice and asking yourself if you have many sentences on each side. I'm going to link in our Blackboard some descriptive videos about using the comma so that if you feel that you need some extra support, you can watch those. In our next video, we're going to take a look at the apostrophe.